Okay. Good morning, everybody. First of all, before we discuss barbecues, obviously everybody is pleasantly surprised about the events on Shabbos, which we were informed on Shabbos morning. I'm sure we all went to our various forms of media at Say Shabbos last night, and it's a tremendous nace. And you see how there's many different pieces of a puzzle. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mesovev to get to this situation. One ha'ara, I think it's a lesson worth taking. Maybe it's in the schus of what we've been doing in the past year or two. But when a non-Jew, who's the president of this country, gets up in international TV and probably was one of, a highly watched speech of his career, even though it only lasted 4 minutes, and goes well beyond the standard "God bless America" that presidents are mechuyev to end their speeches with. But b'fem malay, thanks God, the Halachos, it's something to take to heart. And we know from many different Amarei Chazal that when rulers and nations of the world do those types of things, we have to make sure we do it also. And we're also not embarrassed to publicly, privately and publicly, thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the amazing events that are unfolding. Again, not to minimize any destruction of property or loss of life. And not to be embarrassed of such things. If a Goy Gomer is not embarrassed in front of the whole world, then Kol Sheken al Gabe Kol Sheken, we should b'chlal not be embarrassed even in our daily lives. And certainly about these events, to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu publicly about what is beyond an incredible turn of events. If you cheshbon where we all were 18 months ago on Simchas Torah, October 7th, and how everything was mesovev and came about to where we are today. Of course, we don't know the hashlachot of where everything will be, but nonetheless, from our vantage point now, and always, we should always be proud of mentioning HaKadosh Baruch Hu and continue to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The subject of conversation is we're coming to the summer, and usually every month when we have these shurim, we discuss something topical to the upcoming Yontif, an interesting topical thing. Of course, there is no Yontif right now in Tammuz until Tzom Haravi will be turned to L'Sasson L'Simcha, as it says in Zechariah. But there is the secular Yontif of July 4th. And Bechlal, many of us, Baruch Hashem, are engaging in barbecues. And I thought there's a couple of halachos. I'm not talking about the complex issues of kashrus. Baruch Hashem, we all keep kosher. Various halachos of barbecues. And I think the first and most prevalent halacha that I think needs to be discussed is the concept of shinui makom. And that is in reference to brachos. The reality is when you have a barbecue, so the way barbecues unfold, particularly when you invite people over, is the first stage of a barbecue is you have beer and you have pickles and some chips and things like that. And then you wander about. You go into your house, you come out of your house. Your friend comes to the street and you go into the street to say hello to him. And you're wandering here, there, and everywhere. And what happened to our brachos? So, based on how we paskin, based on the Shitas Harama in Kuf Ayin Ches, and how the Mishnah Berurah paskins, foods are divided into two categories: dvarim shetzrichim bracha achreim b'mkolman, and things that do not need a bracha afterwards. So, bread is something that's tzarech bracha achreim b'mkolman. That means that ideally you should go back to where you were if you can and bench. Not that benching doesn't work somewhere else, but ideally you should go back to where you were. Then there's all sorts of other foods like drinks and fruit and chips and anything else you could conjure up, pickles, right? That aren't tzrichim bracha achreim b'mkolman. If you make a bracha on an apple and you go outside, and make a bracha achrona, so you can make your bracha achrona outside. Now, what that does is, it's an irony, because those things that need bracha achreim b'mkolman, it means wherever you are, it's like we say you're in a continuation of your meal. And therefore, even though lechatzchila, you should not be mishane mokum, you shouldn't change your place unless you have kavana when you wash. B'diavad, if you leave your house after you wash, you could continue eating without out of bracha beforehand. And that's how we paskin. Very often when people go to Sheva brachos, you see this, right? You start your suda in your house and you bench by someone in Sheva brachos, or you start your meal in your house and you go for dessert at someone else's house. You don't need to make another bracha rishona. Dessert's another shaila, but when you continue eating, because it's tzarach bracha achrein. Conversely, if I eat an apple here and then I go to your house, then I got to make another bracha on an apple. What about mazonos? So mazonos is one of those things that's in between. The Shulchan Aruch Harav holds that mazonos are like an apple. Others are mekel, that mazonos are like hamotzi. But at the end of the day, most of us do not serve mazonos at barbecues. The derech klal is you serve pickles. And you serve chips first, and you have beer, right? So then we need to, again, divide it into two categories. If you are meniach miktsas chaverim, or you're not meniach miktsas chaverim. This is in the Shulchan Aruch Siman Kuf Ayin Ches Sif Beis in the Ramah. Did you leave a bunch of people where you were eating in the first place? Now, it has to be that this group of people is eating together. So you invite a bunch of friends over to your house, and you all enjoy potato chips. You enjoy potato chips. And now you go to your front lawn, or you get in a car to go to Walmart to get a bag of ice, because Lamaisa, you have friends over and there's no ice, and that's embarrassing. Lamaisa, you don't need to make another bracha when you come back. Why? Because I left a bunch of friends with me. Okay? And that works. Now, it has to be that those people are joining together with you in the Suda. We hold this is true according to the Mishnah Berurah, even if it's a Suda of chips and drinks, but it has to be Lamais they're joining together, not just that they're hanging out at your house. You're enjoying food together. If that's the case, then you do not need to make another bracha when you come back. You don't need to make another bracha when you come back. Okay?
You're a Seder of brachos anyway, so shouldn't you be starting with hamotzi?
So, first of all, Lamaisa, that's not what happens at barbecues. So we're talking about Lamaisa. Lamaisa, people do not, how many times you had a barbecue when you're over at your house, except for Yontif, and everybody has hamotzi, and even when you're over for people over for Yontif, people usually snack beforehand. Hey, taste this hamburger that I'm making. What?
Okay.
Pita chips.
Pita chips, whatever bracha you make on them, right? So I'm saying that's...
Even though you're supposed to make hamotzi first.
So it's not true. It's not really true. Because there is a concept of a paris l'fnei suda, when you enjoy something before a meal. Okay? And at the end of the day, there's many branches of Achenu B'nai Yisrael that every Shabbos they suda. I don't know if you know this, they have zonos before they make hamotzi. Anybody's ever heard of this going on? Right. It's what? No. There's many people in their homes. It's a Hasidic custom. It's certain Hasidus that they make kiddush every Shabbos day in their home. They bring out rogalach or kokosh cake. They make a bracha on it, and then they go wash for hamotzi. So I'm not getting into that, but it is done. And Lamaisa, if you have a barbecue house, you're not ready to have hamotzi, right? Your friends are over, or your wife is finishing preparing the food. You're not yet ready to have hamotzi. You're not prepared to. I'm doing the food. It's a barbecue. No, the way it works at barbecues is your wife prepares everything. You feel like the big shot because you do the grill.
Correct. There you go. We're on the same page.
What if you all get into the car, you all go to Walmart now, you have 4 people with you, you all leave the place, and you all jump in?
You need to make a bracha achrona, what you ate, and a new bracha rishona. Even if you're coming back in 15 minutes. What? Doesn't make a difference.
But if someone stays, they don't have to.
But only one person stays and you're okay?
Mixas chaverim, you're okay. But it has to be someone, again, if you're enjoying chips outside and your wife is marinating the meat inside, she's not enjoying the chips with you.
But if there's one person who stays outside by the table
by the
in the patio, that's okay. Then you're covered, as long as somebody sticks around there.
Correct. Now, that brings us to a question. Let's say there's no one out there, and a lot of times this happens when you're preparing the barbecue beforehand, the emes, you don't even realize it, and you're snacking, and there's no one there with you. Or you and your friend go out together. What is considered a shinui makom? It's a very important halacha in general. You're enjoying a coffee in your home in the morning, and you go outside to your car. What is considered a shinui makom? So we paskin talks about bias labias. It's a big discussion. What does the word bias labias mean? Now I know you think, oh, bias labias means house to house. You have to understand, in those days, how many rooms do they have in a house? They had one room. So sometimes in the Gemara, when it talks about bias labias, it means from room to room. Okay, it's machlokes rishonim. We're mekel that bias labias means cheder lecheder. I'm sorry, within one house is considered a bias, and bias labias is another person's house. What about your backyard? So that is an excellent question. What about your backyard? So let's discuss what it says in Shulchan Aruch, and then we'll extrapolate there. Someone is eating in a garden. And in those days, we don't live like this, right? Maybe we do. You had multiple patches of vineyards, let's say, and they were all next to each other. And you make a bracha on a bor pri hagafen in your vineyard, you got to make another bracha when you go to the next guy's vineyard. Even if they're next to each other. Doesn't make a difference. Well, what happens in your house? So since we say Safek brachos lahakel, and it's a machlokes of modern poskim, we say that your backyard is part of your house. And therefore, if you make a bracha on an apple in your house and you go into the backyard, you do not need to make another bracha. It's considered mecheder lecheder, going from room to room. Now you should know, there are people that argue on this vociferously. That being said, that is basically how we paskin. However, when you go to the street, that's Pesach Beso, that's the entrance of your house. You have to make another bracha unless you leave miktas chaverim. Das is not going to help in this situation. Unless you leave miktas chaverim, unless you leave someone behind. Okay. The Chaya Adam writes, and this is important to know, that even if you eat as you're going along, it does not create a continuation of a meal, and you need to make another bracha when you go to the front of your house, or you go to Walmart to pick up ice. Even when you come back, you're going to have to make another bracha.
What about continuing to eat or drink while you're going?
The Chai Adam says it doesn't work.
Not alt when you come back, alt while you're going.
The Chai Adam says it doesn't work.
So I started my coffee in my kitchen.
Right.
I got in my car.
Right.
I did not make a bracha achrona.
Right.
When I started driving towards shul, I should make another shahakol.
According to the Chai Adam.
And then when I got here, I should make a third shahakol.
According to the Chai
Should I
Adam.
be making a bracha achrona before I leave each place?
Depends on what you drink.
So if I drink a third of my coffee...
According to the Chai Adam, I always... Well, I just started one sentence. Can I continue with the next sentence?
Because what if you know you're going to take it, you want to take it with you, you want to wash first in the house because you don't have a sink in the car.
Washing is different. Washing is something that's charach bracha chaim koma. That'll help you.
So
Was talking about non-washing.
If you're going to be eating in the car, you should wash and make a motzi in the house or wash and make a motzi in the car.
But we said
Better
how
Pesach
motzi
Hadas.
was
Botzi is different.
Was different.
Correct.
Only
How-
like
Yeah, but then if you
shahakol
wash and make a motzi in the house, can you continue?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Then you'll chatchili of das. A meal is something that continues. Bread is something that's charach bracha chaim koma. Okay. So that's the chayal.
You're okay with that?
What?
With bread, you're okay with that?
It's since bread ironically requires you technically to come back to the same place, so it's considered like one long suda. It's nothing to do with that. It has to do with is the meal continuing? With fruits, there's nothing to continue the meal. Okay. Now let's address your thing. I said the Chai Adam 3 times. Let me continue. Okay. The Igros Moshe Chelek Beis Siman Nun Zayin says the following thing: that the Chai Adam, when he says that if you drink as you walk out, it does not allow you to continue, is only talking about when you're mafsik, when you make an interruption, toch kidei dibur. So if I drink continuously as I'm walking out of the house, according to Rav Moshe, you do not need to make another bracha when you get into your car.
But you need to be drinking the entire time?
Let me finish. You need to be drinking the entire time. An example of this would be if you're sucking candy. Rav Moshe holds that even when the Chai Adam says it doesn't help if you're eating as you're going outside, that's because he was talking about a scenario where you're interrupting your eating. But if you're eating straight through, you don't have a problem. That's how he interprets the Chai Adam. Then Rav Moshe has another kula. And that is that if you make, let's say I'm walking in the street and I break a bracha on a coffee, I'm allowed to continue walking and drink my coffee. And Moshe holds that if you make a bracha on your coffee in your house, leilech lederech, then you were never koveya your makom in your house, and you could continue drinking in the car. So therefore, he says that when I'm enjoying a barbecue, that would be a big problem because I'm not when I eat have a barbecue, I'm not intending to wander around the street eating. I'm intending to be here. Now I go there, it's a separate place. But when you have your coffee in your car in the morning as you're going to the car to shul, Rav Moshe says your coffee is not being drunk in the house, even if you drink it in the house. It's being drunk on the road.
What about when you get to shul then?
L'chora, it's all an experience of the road. Pashtus, according to Moshe. It's an interesting
experience
kula.
of the top to bottom of the coffee.
So it's an interesting question because when you come to shul, at that point you may be kovei, I'm drinking in the shul. Certainly when I get into my car, I don't have a problem. Okay? Do you hear what he's saying? But he's saying it has to be a drinking of derech. In other words, if I sit with my wife and have a coffee in the morning,
You take out a regular mug or you take a to-go cup.
I don't think that's an akuda because some of us here take all sorts of things into shul. There's people who bring ganta sudas into the shul.
Okay.
But the point is, what are you doing? What's your experience? Is your experience of drinking at the home, oh my gosh, it's time to go to shul? Or am I saying, let me sit and have my coffee with my wife, okay, I'll finish it in the car? You absolutely need to make another bracha on the car. Belishum Suffolk, you need to make a bracha on another bracha on the car. Or I'm filling up my coffee, I'm going to be drinking this as I go to the car, go to get gas, and then I'll eventually show up at shul. Okay?
Where if you never go outside? Your car's in your garage, which is in your house. You go from your kitchen to your garage.
That's
into
an
your
interesting
car,
question. I would
and
say
then
it's,
you're
when you go outside, you have the same problem. When you drive,
When you pull out of your driveway.
you probably
now
drive
you're
it.
At that point, you're in the
No,
car.
you're Mishana Malcolm. You're Mishana Malcolm. You're Mishana Malcolm. Okay? So that is the first issue with the barbecue. Let's discuss the second issue of the barbecue. Do grates on a barbecue need tefillah? Grates. The meat thermometers need tefillah.
Burnt out.
Tefillah has nothing to do with burnt out. That's kashrus. What?
Anything that touches food. Do you do your the racks in your oven?
So let's talk about this for a second. How does that sound? What does it say in the Gemara in Avodah Zarah Daf Ayin Hamud Beis? What?
I didn't get there.
Okay. You'll get there with Daf Yom. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah Daf Ayin Hamud Beis says clay suda need tefillah. What are considered clay suda? So we have two mechabers. Simon Kuf Kaf Sif Dal. The mechaber says, what does he say? Something tarpidish. Okay, that's called a tripod. That you put a kedera on it does not need tefillah because it doesn't come in contact with food. Whereas a pladish that comes in contact with food needs tefillah. That seems very simple, doesn't it?
No.
So oven grates don't touch food, you're saying? That's why it's not a shiloh, but a
Right.
grill grate does?
Correct. However, in Sif Hey, the very next Sif says the mechaber that a sakin shel shchita yesh mish omer that it doesn't need tefillah. Why? Because a sakin shel shchita is not something that's the final process of making food. Now, the Ramah seems to argue, but the Shach and the Taz both seem to go ahead with the mechaber.
Why is a grate not the final process?
A grate is. But wait. As you know, on your barbecues, there are two grates. There are two grates, folks. There's the grate on the bottom that you cook food on, and there's a grate on the top where you warm up the food. Everybody know what I'm talking about?
Yes. The shelf.
The shelf. Ramosha has a tshuva, fascinating tshuva. Chelik Beis Yordeh, Simon Kaf Dalet. What about a toaster oven? No one has toaster ovens anymore. Do you need to tovel a toaster oven?
No.
So, if Moshe holds, you don't.
Only in liquid.
If Moshe holds, you don't. Why not? He says a clay suda falls into one of two categories. Either it's something you have on your table, or something that's crucial for the food preparation itself. A toaster oven doesn't do anything to toast. It doesn't make the food right for you to eat. It's not called the clay suda. It's drying out the food. It's cooking the food. It's not a clay suda. According to Moshe, a meat thermometer absolutely does not need tefillah. Has nothing to do with the fact that it comes in contact with food.
We're talking about the toaster that the things go in, or the toaster with the grate.
Either.
Really? Okay.
If you just use it for toasting. Some people cook some meals on the toaster oven, but
Grilled cheese is more than just toasting.
interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Interesting. Maybe he would say it's different, but
That's what most people use them for these days.
okay. Enochinami.
Yeah.
But back to our meat thermometer. Meat thermometers come in contact with food. It doesn't come on a table, and it doesn't prepare food to eat. It absolutely does not need tefillah. Think about the grates in a grill. The bottom grate needs tefillah. The top grate, where it just keeps the food warm, pashtus, it doesn't need tefillah. Moshe says you want to be machmer, you could tovel it without a bracha.
That's really just for warming.
No one ever puts food on there that's not cooked already.
Not true. I mean,
Of course, because like if you're
Again, why are you putting food on there that's cooked?
Take an onion,
no,
slice it up. You put it on the grates. They burn it.
Then ain't a you have to tovel yours.
same thing with
You have to
a
tovel
lot
yours.
of times
Same
if
thing
you
with
want to
corn.
like slow cook something, you
Yeah.
put it on the
Oh, then
higher
you have
shelf.
to. Then you're right. Then you have to. But a meat thermometer, definitely you don't. Anything of that nature that's in the pre-preparatory stages does not have to. Okay? And then there's one last subject, which is a little touchy, but I'm going to mention it.
You missed one thing. There's one other thing in the thing. I think the answer
Flare
is no,
guard.
but flavorizer bars.
oh,
right?
flare guard also.
Where the grease drips, it's a separate bunch of metal strips. Underneath, the grease drips onto that, and then it kicks it up and it
I don't
smokes
think
it up and it
those is
smells the food.
barbecues.
But it doesn't actually come in contact.
It
but
doesn't.
it's flat
Even if
out.
it comes in contact with food,
Still not.
it's not there to prepare something to eat.
But
It's not there to prepare something to eat.
No, he's saying it's not just a drip tray. It actually
also
smokes
the-
up
So
the
what?
flavor.
the pan that you
So does
put
the fire.
smoke
It's not
with the,
preparing it to eat. It's neither a clay suda. You don't bring that to the table, and it's not preparing it to eat. It doesn't need
It's like the
tefillah.
tongs that you use to pick up the food. You're preparing the food.
Exactly.
But the flavor guard that you said, it just
It's like a
cooks
box.
the food itself. but
It
it-
smokes.
No,
It
it's like
smokes-
a
it
box.
smokes
You put
it.
stuff in and you put it in
Right.
right.
So it doesn't. It doesn't. I mentioned the meat thermometer because a lot of people have this idea. If it touches food, it needs tefillah. It's not so simple. For example, they talk about this in real fancy places. They used to have a needle that threads a chicken closed with
Yeah,
stuffing
people still-
inside.
People still do it. Yeah.
Fancy people do
Yeah.
it. We're not fancy. So the Pri Chodesh holds it doesn't need tefillah. You are. It comes in contact with food, but it's not something that's a
so.
preparatory stage to make it eat. They talk about chicken knives. If they cut yarok vegetables, they prepare it to eat. You need tefillah. They cut chicken. No one cuts chicken that's cooked, hopefully, with a chicken knife. You cut chicken that's already before it's cooked. It's not the preparatory
The
stage.
chicken shears you wouldn't need.
Again, unless you use them for vegetables, okay? I just want to mention one last subject of barbecues, which I think is important to discuss, and that is people enjoy food at people's houses that maybe the kashrus is not the greatest, because they say to themselves, it's only meat anyways, which is a great line, okay?
What does that even mean? Only meat.
That if you know that the person only buys kosher meat, so there's mekilim. Or they do the following thing. They go to someone's house and they cover the top. They light it up to 800 degrees. They leave it for 10 minutes and they kasher out the barbecue like that. Even if it's ben yom, it works. If you heat a barbecue to 800 degrees, you've kashered
So
your
what could be the
barbecue.
problem then?
I'll get to that in a second. Let me just talk for a minute, okay? So you've kashered out your barbecue. Has to get 500 degrees is not enough. We say 800, 1,000 degrees. Now, by the way, you'll destroy the top part of your thing if you do that. The paint will come off, but if you don't mind, you told me you didn't mind before Pesach, then we'll... Okay, then it's fine. Then you can kasher it. The shaila comes that we just have to pay attention. There's I don't mean to say anything that's going to hurt anybody's feelings. There is another issue, and that is that food that's cooked by someone who's not Shomer Shabbos is a big shaila. So we know that you need food to be cooked by a Jew. That's the Gzeira of Bishul Akum. The question is, why did they make the Gzeira that were only allowed to enjoy food cooked by a Jew and not a guy?
Not for intermarriage?
So the Marit, Dovi Glatzer knows. Let me talk. I know. So the Marit preempted Dovi Glatzer. And the Marit writes, Mishum Chasnos, that if we have too much interaction, especially when it comes to food, because food is things that bring people close together. You'll find yourself in a guy's house. This is literally how they talk about it. And you'll find a nice, perhaps a young woman there. That won't be such a good situation. But the Beis Yosef brings another reason. Shema Yachilenu Nevelos. That we're afraid that the guy will pop in Nevela. Okay? Will pop in Nevela. Okay? What's the nafkamina between these reasons? Maybe if the guy cooks in your house, there could be a nafkamina. So, maybe he'll pop in Nevela. So the Pischei Tshuva writes that this is the nafkamina between the situation that we mentioned before. If someone is Shomer Shabbos, there's no issue to worry about chasnas because they're Jewish like you and me. So what are you afraid of? You're going to marry the daughter's Jewish. She'll be Makayev and it'll be a very happy situation, right? But if not, we have another shaila. So it's a machokas achronim, which of the two reasons of the Rishonim we paskin like. It's something to bear in mind. Obviously, there are scenarios where a person could be makil, person could be lenient, and you have to ask a shaila at a barbecue. Even if you're convinced you're going to kasher out the grill, you have to ask a shaila whether or not it's an appropriate place to be makil in such a thing. In industrial settings, we tend to be machmer, obviously. That's how we operate in industrial settings. But it's something to keep in mind when you're dealing with a barbecue, because I know this is a scenario where people
their daughter is still Jewish, so if,
right. So again, it's only because of the second reason. That's just what I said.
And maybe they'll throw on the veils.
They'll throw on the veils, right? That gzeira has nothing to do with whether you're Jewish.
What percentage of cooking do we need to worry about? Are you with the food owner? Are you?
Excellent question. Certainly, very nice
I've been
question.
coming and going and watching.
Very nice. So pashtus, watching is interesting, but once Chazal make a gzeira, they tend to make a gzeira. Okay, there is a raiva that says like what you said, I alluded to it, but pashtus, we don't hold like that
Isn't
raiva.
that the whole thing starting with the fire
So-
is no longer bishalakim though?
That's true.
So then how are you sure that they're not going to throw a veil on when you start the fire?
Again, as I mentioned before, when Chazal make gzeras, they make gzeras. The idea was that when you're involved with the cooking, you'll be paying attention. Okay? In industrial settings, that's not how it works. Okay, we don't go beyond. You're asking a good question. Sfardim, by the way, are machmer, but you're right.
So Spartam require you to put the
Right.
actual meat
The
on the
actual,
grill
yeah.
for them.
So like this. Just 1 second. What?
No,
Okay, hold on a second. What would you ask?
How involved in the cooking do you have to be? If you're at somebody's house and you're not 100% sure they're perfectly they're not 100% sure.
So the answer is that if you're, so this is a big conversation I've had. It pashtus, if you add to the cooking process, that's okay. But if the thing is cooked already, it's not okay anymore.
Because there's a barbecue etiquette of exactly how much involvement you're allowed to have in somebody else's barbecue.
Now,
So if
that's a
you
whole nother
sneak in and
shear.
Take a chops and flip over a piece of meat, you're kosher.
Yeah,
You're involved in the cooking of that meat.
yeah, but that gets into another shiloh. And that is, after you went ahead and you kasher your barbecue, the shiloh on kalim. So that's not really going to help with that. It'll help if you kasher the barbecue, but it's something to keep in mind when people are over at your house. You also have to pay attention to such things. Okay, we're going to stop here. I just wanted to raise these issues. I wish everybody a truly wonderful day.